Lord Jesus, good evening. Thank you for gathering us. Thank you for being with us. You are the light. Shine within us. You are the word. Sound within our heart. You are the door. Open to us. Open upon the vision of your kingdom. And good evening to the rest of the sons of God. Okay, we have looked into the abyss before creation and found it to be endless, loving awareness that is totally knowing and utterly loving its endlessly knowable and utterly good self. That's a mouthful that tries to express a very simple vision. And after standing a moment in this eternal moment, in the presence of this infinite joy that exists before any things exist, after hearing with our hearts the primordial song that is lived, we let creation come on as the song that is sung. We saw things arise and stand within that living light as the thoughts of that pure awareness, its ballad, its symphony in praise of itself. Molecules and galaxies, dinosaurs and butterflies, rising up and existing by the pressure of this love brimming up within each of them. This is creation and what it means to be a creature. To be a creature is to be in the thought and love of God. To be a creature is to be a thought loved by God. So tonight, let's keep looking at all this. Let's let the song of creation arise before the face of the creating awareness, and let the whole thing dance into existence by the pressure of his love within each thing. And let's watch it all come forward, all creatures, great and small, to the dawn of the day of man, to the point where it is all but finished and is ready for the creation and entrance of the human animal. We're at the dawn of the fifth day. God said, "Let the waters teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth within the vault of heaven." And so it was. God created great sea serpents and every kind of living creature with which the waters teem, and every kind of winged creature. God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply upon the earth." Evening came, and morning came, the fifth day. God said, "Let the earth produce every kind of living creature, cattle, reptiles, and every kind of wild beast." And so it was. God made every kind of wild beast, every kind of cattle, and every kind of land reptile. God saw that it was good. I stop before the advent of the human person because I think it is important to display this world at the point where there is no shadow of a doubt that it is entirely God's work, that no one but God is to blame for any jot or tittle in it. God is not its hapless custodian. He is its absolute creator. Its entire existence is His idea and His will. Every creature exists only in and by His thought and love. Whatever is, insofar as it is nobody else's idea and nobody else's fault. If you can have some doubt about that after man has stepped into the scene, there can be no doubt about it at high noon of the 6th day of creation. Nobody has been at work but God, and He has checked His work out all along the way and pronounced it good. And you can certainly see that it is good in the beauty of it all. The sun rising on the cooper, the squirrel scampering in the oak, the azaleas in bloom, the bullfrog grunting his greeting to the night. But bullfrogs find themselves in the fanged grip of moccasins, and squirrels find themselves carried alive in the teeth of foxes or the talons of hawks. And God not only allows this, He designed the hawk and the fox and the snake to do this. It's precisely the symphony He arranged, the dance He creates these creatures to dance. If you stay indoors and never really look at His world, or if you concentrate on the mess men are making of His world to the exclusion of a good look at the world that we have nothing to say about, the world that is there before us and in spite of us, then you miss knowing a lot about the Creator of this world. For this world is full of pain that is not any man's fault, and is not some devil's fault or some oversight of God. This world, God's garden of delight that He prepared for us, it is created with pain built right in. It's a tapestry in which pleasure is the woof and pain is the warp. They are threaded almost equally through it all. I'm not thinking only of the supreme pleasures and pains, the squirrel mating and the squirrel feeling the talons in its chest, but the everyday things, the squirrel settling down in his furry tail in the warmth of his nest at night and bracing against the frosty air, grabbing his ribs in the morning. God's good creation is a fabric of pleasure and pain, a fabric beautiful and good all through. For those who see pain as evil, that is quite a problem. I have no answer to that problem, no answer that I can articulate at this point. But I do offer a word out of my own experience about a way to approach the problem. Approach it contemplatively. Approach it lovingly, but with your eyes and your heart open to what is there. Approach it through beauty and the pathos of beauty's transience. Don't try to solve the problem of pain. but try to enter the mystery with compassion and with the heart's question, feeling it and listening to it, open to its lesson. I cannot say what it teaches any better than to say that if you do not turn away from it, it teaches you that the Bible is telling the truth, that it is all good, not happy birthday party, superficial good, but deeply, strangely good. Good and right and beautiful, even as it is full of pathos and a message deeper than itself, a message about life, a hint of something about the world in which God Himself can die and live. But I don't know how to put into words what pondering these living words tells my heart. I can only tell you, report to you, that the message I get is good. Finally, it is good. All is well. Where at first I saw only cruelty and waste, where I felt terror of the author of such immense beauty in such terrible destruction, I found, by standing and not turning away, by continuing to look and love, even though that let in the other's pain, I found that somehow the eye of my heart cleared to a vision which, yes, is still wrung with painful compassion, but somehow, I don't know how, somehow also knows that this is all deeply good and finally right. So that I now realize that I do not really know either God or His creation if all I know is that God feeds the birds. I think it is necessary to insist that He also feeds the cats. He feeds them birds. Or rather, His love makes cats be excellent cats. And that means expert bird catchers. The cats feed themselves. And that is the next point I want to get to. Namely, that God isn't running the world. He is the creator, not one of your animistic deities. He makes things be. He doesn't make them turn left or right. His creatures are things, real things, not phantoms in His mind, not gloves on His hands. We think images and phantasms. He thinks things, because He is pure and invincible love. God is love. It sits there so simply in St. John. We don't really see it, hear it, believe it, feel it pounding in ourselves. Every time I catch a good glimpse of it, it knocks the bottom out of my latest world. God is love. This eternal, unlimited awareness is pure yes to all it knows. So whatever it dreams, this love gives being. To each thing its own real being. His thoughts are things, and things, good things, are made to run themselves. They aren't dead things, not even his atoms. He doesn't have to push them around. He just always looks them and loves them, and by that they be. And with just that, they run themselves very well, thank you. And that makes for a pretty wild show, which is not so surprising if you just stop and realize that the creator of this enormous show is a pretty wild creator. And these are the two ideas that I want to toss out for whatever you choose to do with them. The wild show and its wild creator. The wild show, what I'm touching upon is the very traditional doctrine of creatures as secondary agents. I think that's what I'm talking. When I put that line down at home, I ran and got St. Thomas's 3 volumes and was getting ready to look this up and make sure. And then I said, oh no, I said, if they can buy Tom Fidelis's Meister Eckhart, they can buy my St. Thomas. So I'm going to put it back. At any rate, I was willing to be corrected. At any rate. So, but the slant I am taking is my own, and it has to do with control. Control is a pervasive preoccupation of the modern scene, not least the modern monastic scene. It's a perfectly healthy and understandable human reaction to want to know that things are under control. But if the doctrine of original sin says anything, it says that all our perfectly healthy and understandable human instincts are frightfully subject to overreaction and misdirection. So it should not be too surprising to find that we tend to look for more control than is really needed or really there. And in our anxiety, we tend to reach for the wrong kind of control. In any case, I ask you to join me, pause a moment, to feel two pretty orthodox truths that seem to me to have been neglected in the theological press. The easy one is that God is not controlling things the way we like to think he is. He is dreaming up the actors and keeping them in the scene, but they are running themselves, and it's pretty wild and woolly scene. The world is a pretty chancy place to step into, and I mean even before nuclear weapons, before spears and axes. It took all the strength and ingenuity of modern civilization to make it as safe as it is. The irony is that out of all our efforts to make it safe, we seem to have developed the worst danger of all. But what I'm asking to look at and feel our way into is this. God is not in the scene. The scene is in God. God is not a puppeteer. He is neither above the stage nor behind the stage. He is the living, knowing space wherein the stage hangs. God is not running the show. He is loving the actors into existence, and the show is what they themselves do. And what they do seems pretty hairy. And at this point, I'm not even talking about men. If we were in the African bush or the Indian outlands, I might talk about what God's gorgeous creatures, lions and leopards, do, sometime to human folk. But in safe and hygienic Monk's Corner, I can point more realistically to what God's beautiful bacteria and viruses do as they go about their God-given business of increasing and multiplying and trying to fill the earth. If you've had anyone you loved die of cancer or of any of the wasting diseases, you know that things take their course and run you down and devour you as thoroughly and as ungently as any padding leopard. Well, that's love's show. And he doesn't mess with it. He doesn't keep rewriting it. I think I perhaps could say, but I'm not saying that God is not in control, but that he is not in control the way we like to think. He's in control more like a mother who lets the kids run pretty wild. Some of us nervous kids are inclined to want her to police the crowd a lot more. Mother, make Johnny stop licking my ice cream cone. And she just smiles at the whole scene, seeming to be quite confident that all is well, despite the way it feels to me. Mother, tell Billy to stop twisting my arm. It's all right, darling. I'm here. I see what's happening. Crack. And my arm now has 2 elbows. It's still all right, dear. I really don't like the way she is controlling this scene. In fact, to my mind, she is not controlling it. She is exercising no power. All she does is look on with that skewed smile of hers, as if she didn't care. But that, I suggest, is the funny part. That all she does is care. And that skewed smile is more truly the look of skewered love. For Mother here is an image of God's watchful love, God's powerless, omnipotent love. Do not fear, says Jesus. You are worth more than a flock of sparrows, and not one of them dies without your Father's knowledge. But a little bird told me one day, them sparrows go on dying by the thousands every day. Jesus tells us that the hairs of our head are numbered. That struck me, that a mother or a lover cherishes the hairs of your head, but they don't number them. They don't know them that way. This is a powerful image of the Creator's absolutely intimate knowledge and love of my entire being. That's an image to sit in and feel. But Jesus speaks of this as he predicts that men will murder you. God seems to be running a losing show. In fact, he seems not to be running the show at all, in the way men run shows. I say to myself that he seems a helpless spectator. And then I remember that he is the spectator whose loving gaze lifts all this stuff into being. and not one dancing atom in the whole immense scene would be here to dance if those eyes were not right now and always shining within it with absolute delight and absolute power. So obviously, it is not fundamentally out of his control, but just as obviously, he is letting it run. And if you insist on getting in its way, it will run you over. And he will not reach in to stop it from running you over. And no amount of pious expectation, much less moral theologizing, will compel him to. I'm going to ad-lib here. People tell me how sincere they are, and I say sincerity isn't enough. You got to be right, too. But that brings me to the second simple truth for tonight. This one seems easier to swallow, but if we really digest it, it will shake us right out of our shoes, which is appropriate, since it will land us on holy ground, the rock-bottom place of total insecurity and total faith. The second simple truth that we all know is that God is wild. The traditional way to say that is that there is none above God. The traditional way to domesticate that is to secretly advert to God's goodness and justice, and then to slip these as a moral law above his head, to which he has to conform if he is to be acknowledged by us as a good God. Then we've got him, see? It's really subtle stuff, subtle magic. We noose this unpredictable Leviathan with a line of moral law. We get him with his own rules of good behavior. It's very much the same kind of thing we try to do to our parents and later to our teachers and pastors, anyone who curbs us with rules. We try to throw the same net over them, get a grip on them. Mostly this is out of resentment, especially when we're minus children. And there's certainly no one we resent more than God. But in his case, there is another, much more urgent reason, a very human one. We need to be sure. How can we live with an untamed God? How go a lifetime in loving service if you can't be sure that he will be fair at the end? This is a problem. I think it's very human and very real. I certainly cannot live my life in peace without being sure that God is absolutely good. But he has done two things in my life to change the shape of my need, or rather to redirect it. First, he sort of waved and brushed away my net of moral law, not harshly. I simply realized one day what Job realized at last, that God is not questioned and he gives no guarantees. He swears by himself because there is nothing above him in any way. There is no one and nothing whatever to constrain him. The theologians say that God is constrained by nothing but his own goodness, and we grab for that. Whatever it is that constrains him, we want a handle on that. So we hypostatize, we thingify his goodness as if it were something other than himself, like his report card. Then we hoist it over his head as a rule, his rule, as a control, our guarantee that he will be a good God. There is no guarantee. God does exactly what he wants in a way that no creature can. And there is no way to get a handle on him and make sure that he will be good. You can become sure, quite sure, but you cannot make sure. You can become sure by love, by accepting his love, which is the root of the act of faith. Knowledge and love of him, the knowledge he gives, the love he instills by his presence, will lead my heart and mind to perfect trust. No man can do that for you. I am not trying. My wish tonight is only to despoil you of any sureness based on the delusions of human contrivance. For if we ever somehow get him controlled, we will never let go of hope in our contrivance, our mental construct, our theological system, and we will never fall to clinging to him in total trust, and then we will never really know the goodness of his love. So until we meet again, I wish you total insecurity in the presence of the untamable Creator, the one who does absolutely whatever he wants with no one and nothing to answer to, the author of this wild and dangerous world where you have to watch your step, and where he watches, loving it all, but apparently doing nothing else than that to control it. I've done my human best to leave you absolutely nothing to hope in, to trust in, to cling to, but him, the absolutely uncontrollable one.
This is the end of conference number 3. In a moment, Father Matt will continue.